And welcome back again to another episode of Unpacking Endpoint Management. I am your host, Steve Thomas, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Joe Lurie. Now, Joe, we have a very special guest today, and he's brought his whole team with him, just about. And we've been trying to get this guy on the show for months, if not years. But it is my privilege to have, along with his team, Danny Guillory from the Microsoft Intune team, here to talk about something that we know that a lot of our listeners and watchers have been wanting us to talk about, but the new enterprise application management features in Intune. So let's go ahead and start with Danny. And Danny, just introduce yourself to everybody and tell us a little bit about what you do and work on, and then we'll introduce the rest of the panel here tonight or today as well.
I actually think the panel is more important than me. Especially since my boss is here and Nicole. So yeah. So yeah, everybody knows who I am. So short intro, Danny Guillory. I deal with Windows app management and Intune. Try not to make my boss Brian mad. So as nice comments as possible, please send them. Deposits will come. Other than that, no, everybody kind of knows who I am. So Brian, Nicole, go for it.
All right, I can go next. I'm Brian Keller. I'm a lead program manager on the Microsoft Intune team, and my primary responsibilities are around Windows application management as well as Windows updates, like feature updates, monthly updates, things like that.
I'm Nicole. I'm a product manager on Windows apps. I work with, fortunately, Danny.
Or unfortunately.
Or unfortunately.
Thanks, Nicole. Appreciate that. I'll send the check tomorrow.
And I'm Joe Lurie, and I know Steve said that I am here all the time, but really, I wish I were here more often than I am, so we'll have to keep that in mind. I work on the Intune team, and I like to consider myself, and you can see that, a Microsoft Intune expert. But I do work very closely with Danny on EAM, and I'm here to talk to you all about helping answer your questions.
Joe, so how many push-ups did you do before you stuck your chest in the camera?
Oh, I should have done that. I just took my pull-up bar down from the door as well. I should have done that before doing that.
All right.
It's working. It's working.
Yeah, it's working.
Great.
So, Steve, where do we want to start? We have questions, or should we just ramble for a few minutes?
Actually, I want to kick this off by asking you, tell us a little bit about where the feature stands right now. You know, how many applications do we have? What are some of the applications that you can actually leverage in terms of managing with this new feature right now?
So EAM, Enterprise App Management, has about a little bit north of 300 apps. I'd say around 310, 315. We just added some recently. So we went from, I think, 260 something. We added 40 more, so somewhere around that 300 mark. If those other 40 aren't added now, they'll be added pretty soon. And that's unique applications. So, like internally, we kind of have this debate. What numbers do we publish? In the beginning, we started off with unique numbers because that's really what customers were asking. It doesn't do anybody any good to go out there and say 4,000 apps, and then there's 3,000 duplicates or multi-language, right? Like I won't say I've pivoted that. I just think both numbers are really legit, both internally and externally, right? Because we have to do the work to get all these extra languages in there. So I don't think it's kind of fair to the dev team and the people that do the work to actually not get credit for those applications being there. But as a customer, you really necessarily don't care about all the duplication, multiple languages, right? You care about, hey, do you have Firefox? Do you have, Chrome? Do you have all these other apps? You're not asking about Firefox in French, Firefox in Spanish, right? You're just trying to see what apps you have available. So unique applications, somewhere around that 300, a little bit north of there, once those 40 get added. And if you want to talk about, all of the other multi-language and duplicates, x86, 64-bit, all that stuff, it'll be around, I think it was 400 last time I looked.
So for those who are watching who actually are brand new to this feature, what does it mean to be able to manage this application? What's in scope for that? Are we just talking updates? Are we talking settings management? What kind of give us a 50,000-foot view of what that would empower us to do for an application.
I'll let Brian go. Brian, you go.
Oh, geez, put me on the spot. Managing these applications, it's an end-to-end app management. So there's obviously, we're talking about application lifecycle. And in fact, we've taken it one step further with EAM, which is not only the acquisition of the application, which typically is done through a manual process, and then the initial deployment of the application, assignment, and all the way through to the end. But we also now have discovery, which is a key piece of our strategy. So having a catalog of applications, and as Danny mentioned, it's growing. We plan to grow this catalog, almost every sprint if we can. We'll continue to get unique applications. But the key is that discovery, the deployment, making sure end users can be productive with those applications, and then the ongoing maintenance of those apps, which a catalog provides some exceptional opportunities to be notified when applications are updated, and then to be able to deploy those updates, try them out, safe rollout. All of those things are in scope for this feature, so we're pretty excited about it.
Nice. So what type, if I wanted to onboard an application to this, if there is a application that I'd like to manage, but it's not currently available in the catalog, what is the process for me to actually have this application onboarded, or to request this application get onboarded? Is there a place I can go to actually make this request?
So first I'd say go look at that. Go look at what we have, and there's a docs link for that. If the app is not there, then yes, we have a form that you can submit to have the app in. Not have it in there, but you should submit the form in the spirit of, hey, I would like to have this app in there. All of our processes right now are longer than I would like, just from the sheer fact it's something new. So something being new, all the processes to make it, the most efficient thing haven't necessarily been created yet. Because some people have been, hey, Danny, it's a form. Why isn't it in the console? Like, form is probably the best thing right now. If it was in the console, we'd have to deal with other workflows that we'd have to build in the background that we just really didn't have time to build. So the form is actually not a bad process right now.
Okay.
The form actually gives you some flexibility too, so you can go in. Really, all we need is a download location and the name of the application. What that really does for us is allow us to go evaluate it. Just because you've submitted the application doesn't mean it'll wind up in there, because we do have criteria for things to be in the catalog. But submitting the application could make it a part of our metadata set that at least someday we could decide to actually add it into the catalog. A good example, then I'll just rip the Band-Aid off of us. And right now, everybody asks me like, hey, Danny, why isn't Adobe in there? Well, we have the metadata for Adobe, but there are some technical reasons for why it's not there yet. My response usually to that is, if it's that important, don't you already have it deployed?
Now, so, Adobe, you mean the Adobe Reader?
Yeah, Adobe Reader.
And just to interrupt real fast, because the link hasn't popped up yet, if you do want to request an app to be added to the catalog, or to be evaluated to be added to the catalog, it's aka.ms/EAM/app request. Thank you, Heather, for popping that up. Again, it's aka.ms/EAM/app request.
Our producer is sharp as always. Nice.
Kudos to Joe for the accessibility read, because Heather has to remind me like 10 times to read.
Can I add one thing there, Danny, which is kind of an Uber point? We're going to grow this catalog purposefully. So we're not just going to throw thousands of apps in there. We have access through the catalog to a lot of applications, but we want to be purposeful about it. We want to make sure that the apps that we put in this catalog are meaningful to you, are actual apps that you would be interested or need to deploy in your environment. So we're going to grow it slowly. We're going to take your feedback, and we're going to build this out so that the catalog is a meaningful set of applications. We're not interested in vanity numbers or anything like that. I think Danny preaches that quite often, and I'm a big believer in that.
Well, of course, that makes total sense. You want the apps that people are using. in scale at large scale. Absolutely.
But even
so
if
usually,
you work for like an oil and gas company or a healthcare company, and you think that it's not a common app because it's only available, really only oil and gas would use it, request that app. Ask us to evaluate that, because we have a lot of customers in your industry that also may be interested in having that app added to the catalog. So don't be shy. You can request anything, and we'll evaluate it based on, again, the need and the whether it's able to be done through the app catalog.
Even
at MMS, a lot of customers, I won't say a lot, but a few customers like, hey, how do we get updates if the app's been added or not? We haven't, like, just being honest, we haven't figured out all those notification flows yet. Plus, that might put us in having different other conversations, right? So if, for example, I'm just going to use myself as an example. If I, Danny, use my personal email account to request an application, then we got to figure out how to track it, go talk to privacy, like all of these things take time. And then once we start adding these extenuating circumstances, like collecting your email or something, then we got to go to privacy. The process of your ask just starts to take longer and longer. It doesn't mean that we won't get to it. It just means we have to prioritize what's the biggest value. So yes, I get that right now your request of an app could seem like a black box, but it's where we are today, and we just have to aim to do better and get better, and we will. We're just prioritizing getting you what you need now, which is pretty much more apps and some of the other functionality that people have been asking for.
Joe, do we have questions?
Oh no.
Oh yeah. Oh no, questions.
I forgot. So
No.
we do have questions. I have to mute because I have some work going on back there, which is why my door is closed, which is why my pull-up bar has been taken down. Anyway, we do have some questions, although I love the banter. Let's get to some questions. Some of you are watching this on LinkedIn, some of you on X, some on YouTube, some on Tech Community. So you can ask questions on LinkedIn, really, and on Tech Community. And this one comes from LinkedIn. As an Intune admin, I have an Intune Enterprise App Management license. But do I need to license for all of my users with enrolled devices? And Brian, I'm just going to let you rip that Band-Aid off when we talk about licensing.
Yes, obviously having a license associated with the tenant is something that we like to see. And then every user that is taking advantage of these application types, these features, or any feature within the Intune Suite do require an Intune license.
Thank you. So back to that question from LinkedIn. The Intune admin needs a license really only if they will be receiving these prepackaged catalog applications. All of your end users that are receiving these applications are receiving the application updates when that's available. Yes, they'll be needing a license as well. Vishnav from Tech Community asks us this. I'm actually going to go to Nicole for this one. Nicole, you just introduced app supersedence for available updates. I'm not sure if this question comes to you or not, but I think it might.
It is hers, all hers.
Auto update available with Win32 app supersedence now only applies for available assignment. When will the feature be introduced for required assignments?
Yeah, good question. So it is only available for available assignments right now, even though supersedence applies for both required and available assignments. So the reason that it was built for available assignments is because the admins previously, once they deployed an app and wanted to supersede it, they had no way to push it out for users for it to be installed. It depended on users going into the company portal and doing the install manually. So in order to make sure that the updated apps do get on the device, we built available app supersedence with auto update. But for required apps, that should already be able to be done just with supersedence regularly. Once it's deployed as a required app to the user, it will be installed on the device. So I'm curious if there's anything else that's missing there. But short answer is no, it won't be for required apps.
Joe,
We have a link as well.
Nicole, you just introduced us, I think, in 2404, 2403-ish, the app supersedence. And for more information on deploying the app supersedence, aka.ms/one long word auto update with app supersedence. we'll give you more information and direct you right to our docs pages on that. So thanks,
Right,
Nicole,
Steve,
for that.
what were you saying, Steve?
I'm going to spare the audience and not spell that out.
It's supersedes. My Word and Outlook, they always think I'm spelling it wrong. It's like it's not a word, but I think it is a word, and it's not recognized in Outlook though.
We can have
Derek on Tech Community is asking, and Derek must know that I'm having a stroke reading the way he wrote Intune on Tech Community, lowercase I, capital N, lowercase t, capital U. It's one word, capital I, Intune, no other caps. All right, when using Intune, how do you clean up the failed application deployment notifications on the dashboard for applications that are no longer valid for the target, computer, MDM device, or no longer exist in the system? We find this has a lot of false positives. It makes it hard to see when there's an actual error or problem. Danny, how do you clean up the failed app deployment notifications on the dashboard?
Just don't look at it. It's automatically cleaned.
Yeah, just go to a different node. Get out of the dashboard. We're good.
No. I know the tile he's talking about, and yeah, I don't know. I dare I say it's a bug. Dare I say it's legit. Basically, that tile has some aggregation. It's a counter and aggregated in the back. It could be better. I think it's probably the best and honest and transparent thing to say. It could be better because I think I know exactly what he's talking about. That tile has a number in it. You click on it and then you go to it and there's only 3 devices and the number is like 300. Like, yeah, okay, that's off. So I don't need to deal with that today. I don't know. I'll have to put in an item for the devs to look at it. I can't guarantee any change, but I can promise a conversation. Can't guarantee how long, but yeah, I can do that much. Elaborate a little bit. There is some app coherence work we're going to be doing to make that UX a little better. So that might be an opportunity to comb over that and look at that a little bit later. But that's an opportunity there to fix that or look into it.
Yeah, thanks, Derek. That's a great question. Grant is asking another great question, which we get a lot. Even internally, I see this question a lot. Grant on LinkedIn, will we have an Intune
for Danny?
Filter?
This is all you, Brian. This is all
this is for Danny.
Wait, let me finish reading it.
Okay, sorry.
Will we have an Intune filter moving forward that can target ARM architecture for app deployments? A filter for desktop versus laptop device would also be very welcome, and we can talk about that later. But right now, will we have a filter for ARM architecture?
I swear I did plant that question.
So I'm going to reach to my left and grab something else beside this Coke in a little bit. But yes, there will be something for ARM devices coming. We do have a whole initiative internally to ramp up or reinvigorate, I don't know, choose whatever word you want, support for our ARM devices. So we do have some things coming. I have a peer PM, another team, another unit that's working on another drop down that will target ARM devices. I'm not going to say when it's coming out just because I'm not up to date on the inner circles of those conversations, but I think it is near. And that's a question I guess we can add more context to, or we can have GK answer if they post it in the actual tech community channel.
I love Mike's.
Yeah, I think so for ARM, over the last several years, we have partnered with the ARM team. We've taken some changes to the Intune app management stack to support deploying maybe not native ARM applications, but x86, x64, making sure that those applications run emulated. We've done a lot of testing, but with obviously the strategic importance of ARM for Microsoft and its role in our push for AI, there is a renewed press to really double down on our ARM support, looking at native. It's just going to take us a little time to do the analysis, and Danny is all over that, and he's going to spend most of his time on it. So we'll see what we come up with. Good luck, Danny.
Grant, I'm curious for the second part of your question on a filter for desktop versus laptops, why that would be important to you. For example, I'm using a Surface Studio, which probably is an ARM device, by the way, but I'm using a Surface Studio, which is a laptop. But if I flip it down, it becomes a tablet. So filtering by chassis type doesn't necessarily work, because what about the other devices where you can actually take the screen off the laptop and it's a floating tablet, or folding, right? So is that a laptop? Is it a tablet? Is it a special chassis? So I'm curious on the need for the filter on desktop versus laptop, but we can take that offline through the comments and
I have a very good idea why he's asking that, because in SCCM we used to have WMI queries, right? We run the WMI query for chassis type because, for instance, laptops would get some, I don't know, special VPN configuration or be told to talk to Cloud Management Gateway or whatever, right? So you would have very specific configuration changes, not necessarily app delivery, but maybe configuration of an app for mobile if it was a laptop versus desktop. Now you can still do that if you really wanted to. You would have to use a script in the requirement
model would work for that, something like that.
But it's in WMI. I forgot what it is because I haven't messed with SCCM in a while. But there used to be a actual WMI property you could run to get form factor, I think it is, and it give you laptop, desktop, or I think there was one or two other options in there. But anyway,
I'd argue that today, where people are working from home, at least half the time, they probably have a desktop at home. That probably also needs that same VPN configuration or whatever it is. So again, a little less necessary as it was in the SCCM days. So if we could expand on that a little bit. We have another question. I'm going to go to you, Steve, for this one, since your Twitter is at Mad Virtualizer. I assume you can answer this one, Mad Virtualizer.
So we could also punt that, Danny, to the filters team.
We could punt that to the filters team.
We could. So okay, there's a question from the tech.
Yep. So yes, Swarup is asking on tech community, can we convert and deploy Appv packages as MSIX? But in my environment, we can convert. But in my environment, we have a lot of Appv apps. Any chance Appv will be added in line of business apps? Mad Virtualizer.
What was that? What's Appv? What? I don't believe that Appv would be in scope. I do know that Appv deployments are supported in terms of provisioning our virtualized platform, Windows 365. I know that they've been adding and doing some work for being able to publish Appv apps as well as MSIX app attach. I think the direction there is, pair the virtual with the virtual. And I don't believe, and of course, Brian and Danny can speak to that. I don't believe Appv is going to go in scope for application management on Intune.
No, that's correct. Appv is not in scope. I will say that, and Nicole is actually on point here. We've been talking to a lot of the lead program managers and engineers over on the Windows 365 team, as well as AVD, and we are going to take a renewed look at integration opportunities for the virtual technologies within Microsoft Intune. We are in the infancy of these discussions and brainstorming and design, but it is something that we are looking at. Appv is not going to be part of those conversations. I can tell you.
Thanks. And you can see on the screen, if this is important to you, and this for Swarup as well for you, go to https aka.ms/Intune feedback. You can also, within the apps blade, you can click the send a smiley, and that feedback actually goes right to Brian and Danny and Nicole when you send the smiley. But go to aka.ms/Intune feedback and send that feedback if that's important to you. So, and most of you probably don't know this, and Danny, you may not know this, but the time I've been at Microsoft for about 12 years, but before that, I was an Appv guy, and I knew Steve Thomas from like news groups and forums and things like that as an Appv guy. Before I joined Microsoft. So I love seeing Appv questions even today. It brings back such fond memories.
No, he loves seeing them because it makes me cringe. That's right.
Well, that's a side effect, but it's a happy coincidence. All right, so Douglas is asking a question about EAM. So thank you, Douglas, for this question coming in about Enterprise App Management. Would we expect the app assignment to assume, actually, this doesn't necessarily need to be EAM, but when you assign an app to a user or device, would we expect the app assignment to assume management of existing installations?
That's a good question. It's a little vague, but management of existing installations. So what I think of when I'm reading that is I deployed X and now I want to deploy X1 and X1 needs to take over X. I don't know. It's a little bit
So
confusing.
the way I read this is, let's
Yeah.
say I'm deploying Chrome version X through Enterprise App Management, but Chrome version X is already installed. What
Yeah.
happens when I deploy from the catalog? Does it overwrite the existing installation, or does it say, hey, that's already there?
So this
And
is
I
what you
think
and I have
that-
been talking about, Danny, around the term claim. Remember we came up with that term, claiming the app? I think this is that question.
Next question.
No. I mean, like, okay, so remember, app deployment is kind of a dynamic runtime process on the device. So, and that's the reason that we have detection methods within applications to detect whether an application is already on the machine, and then to not put the machine or the device through unnecessary churn. So if you deploy an application and it attempts to install a device where that app is detected and already there, it is then considered a managed app within the Intune environment. I believe that's the nature of the question, and so the answer
I would go
yes.
further to say,
Yeah.
what if the app was installed from some other method? Let's say I went on to Google and I downloaded Chrome, and for the record, I only use Bing. I don't have any Google apps installed on my device. But let's say I do download Chrome and then it's pushed out to me. So it wasn't pushed to me originally by Intune, but now you're pushing it through the catalog. What happens to my existing installation? Is that where, Brian, you're talking about it? Intune now claims the app is managed.
Yeah. So as Brian said, we have been having this. I won't even say it's a debate. I think we agree we need to do it. It's more of a when, not even an if. So as everybody knows, there's some things I think we need to address before we can actually get there. So things being inventory. Inventory things need to be a little bit tighter, mature, whatever word you would like to use there, because we'll be making decisions off of that, right? So today, for example, if somebody installs Chrome on their device, I'll stick with Chrome since that's what we're using as an example. I install Chrome on my device. If my IT pro or my IT team adds it into the Intune tenant and then assigns it to a group, my device happens to be in said group. If the detection methods match, there is, or at least used to be, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, there used to be some property of if the app is managed or not, so that property would flip. And then so me installing the app on the device, the property actually does not exist. The property exists once it is assigned through the Intune system, and then Intune says, hey, is that the app managed or not? So property gets created, property gets turned into is managed. Now that application is managed and there's no impact if, here's the if criteria. The if criteria is if the detection method matches. If the detection method does not match, then Intune says, hey, the app's not on the device. And that could be as simple as a typo from an admin, because we've got probably tons of support cases like that, right? Or script being done wrong. However that detection method is, as long as it equals true, property will get switched to manage. If that detection method fails, then Intune's going to do what it's told to do. App's not detected, so Intune will try to reinstall said application. As far as claim an app, again, infancy conversations, as Brian said, we want to get there. We think there's some prerequisites to getting there, though. So hopefully that makes sense, because it does to us. And every time we have conversations, that's where it boils down to. It's like, yeah, we can do this, but this needs to be better before we go do this.
Yeah, I think there's two concepts I'll talk about really quick. One is you need to deploy an application. You want it to be a managed application in your environment. Your end users need the app. Somehow it already got there. You deploy it. It's all good. Intune now knows about it on this device. It becomes managed. The challenge, and what Danny and I are very keen to look after as far as future features, is what about apps that are installed that you're unaware of? That so we have to get really solid with the Intune inventory, and then we have to take that inventory and match that up against what's in our catalog or what's in your app estate. That's the piece that is kind of future looking. As far as just if an app you're deploying is already on a machine, no problem. It's what are the apps that you don't know about? That's the challenge that we're looking at going forward.
Yeah. The unknown of the unknown is
unknown. Yeah.
The unknown of the unknown is really what will put customers in a bad spot, right? Because they want to know about the unknown, but they don't know about the unknown of the unknown, which could be dependencies of other apps or supersedence of other apps. They could be. It's really a nest egg of a spider web of just what if scenarios when it comes to apps, because there is no standardization in said app model. I can tell you, like, I've used Wise Package Studio and all the other package devices apps back in the day, and I've made some crappy applications, and people probably still do today. So you have to account for those things when you're looking at a management solution. So yes, we would like to give you all that maturity. That maturity may come with more time, more patience, because other things need to be improved to account for those issues, to not inadvertently basically put you in a bad spot as a customer, because it would be horrible to have said feature and then, oh crap, 3 or 4 applications start breaking because you updated registry key, something underlying.
So let's take a quick break from questions. And Nicole, what info or insights would you like to share or get out there? We've been talking a lot, so let's hear from you.
Yeah, can we talk about some things that are upcoming, or is that allowed here?
This is a big public,
yes,
non-NDA audience. You talk about whatever you feel like getting mail about.
Yep, whatever you feel like. Yeah, literally, whatever you feel like getting email about, go for it.
Wow, big pool of things that we could talk about. So one of the things that I'm really curious to hear emails about is we're looking a little bit into how customers want to deal with installing an app while a dependent app is currently in use. Very infancy stage of exploration, so any feedback is welcomed. I know that's a big point of friction right now. That's one of the things that's top of mind for me. So I'm curious to hear from anybody.
So let's just let's pull down that thread just a little bit, like just elaborate. Enterprise App Management, right? So one of the features we have coming hopefully soon is the ability to update an application. And if you've seen any of the demos that I've done, or MMS, whatever conference I've been at, I do this demo where I show you how an app is updated. And therein lies said problem that Nicole is trying to help solve. App is open, right? Notepad++ is open. Here's an update. I don't have a solution for that in EAM today, nor is said solution even in the app model. So what customers we know today they do is use the Intune wrapper tool, wrap a batch file, a PowerShell script, look for the task, kill the task, but that needs to come into the UX. So Nicole is exploring ways that we can detect if an app is open and then trigger a close of said process. That way, not just advantages to EAM, but really advance our whole app model altogether. Did I say that right, Nicole?
Yeah, we want to take care of the process within Intune. We don't want to rely on anything else.
And
like the transparency is I forgot about it and she had to figure it out. So Danny screwed up somewhere.
Well, it's a pleasure working with Danny.
I do just want to mention Nicole's asking for your feedback, and we did have that link up here before. Yep. Again, it's aka.ms/Intune feedback, and we'll put that back up again. But any feedback you have on the Win32 app model, on the Supersedence, on updating an app that is running on the desktop, or where a dependent app is running on the desktop, aka.ms Intune feedback. Let us know your thoughts about that.
I'll add one thing that and Nicole and Danny know that I preach this, which is if there's anything that you as a customer are doing where you have to write scripts or customize, you're trying to pop UI, you're trying to shut down tasks, anything that you need to do in the app lifecycle, we want to understand what those customizations are, and we want to bring those as much as we can into the model, because if it's within the app model, then we can report on it. We can provide insights on it. We can, throw errors and give you actions, right? If we don't know what you're doing, you're writing a script and it's kind of a black box to us, it's not a great experience. So we want to try to make the experience better. So anything that you're customizing that you think might benefit all customers or a segment of customers, please let us know.
That is a great point, Brian. Thank you for that. Because if you are customizing it, someone else is customizing it. If you're writing a script, someone else is writing a script, or maybe you went on GitHub and found a script and you just trusted that it worked, right? If you're doing that, then other people are as well. And we do want to know about that. aka.ms Intune feedback. I'll say that 100 times today if I can.
Nicole should tell everybody her email address so she can get all those emails.
Or she should get on Twitter. Nicole, you need to get on X so that we can find you that way. Steve, should I go back to questions? I've got 2 questions that are burning my tongue right now.
Well, it's either that or listen to me vent and rant, and I think the audience would rather hear the questions.
All right, I've got 1 question coming in from Jason on Tech Community. He wants to go back to dependencies for a minute. I'm sorry, go back to supersedence for a minute. Currently, you cannot supersede a dependency. This prevents you from being able to leverage that new feature to automatically upgrade available apps via supersedence if the app you need to update is a dependency. Any update on if or when we will be able to supersede dependencies so that we can leverage the auto update feature for available apps against dependencies? Nicole, that is
a whole lot of trouble. So Nicole,
So-
I'll let you first.
So as Joe mentioned, we released available app supersedence in around 2404. We are looking into ways that we can improve the feature, and that's happening right now. On this question, maybe I'm hoping Danny and Brian have a little more insight into looking at Danny's face, maybe not. I'm curious, what is the restriction here with dependencies?
I'm curious what Danny thinks too.
Oh my God.
I'm curious what Danny thinks too.
Yeah, see?
Steve, are you curious what Danny thinks?
I am actually, yeah.
The reason we're teasing Danny is because I know he's thinking about this area, and he's got some, and there's challenges, but this is an area that he's all over. So yeah.
So dependencies is interesting, and there's some things I might have to let go. So it's very hard to let go of 20 years being a customer. So as I PM stuff, like dependencies is I'm going to say it's a problem. More of a problem for me, less for you. I am over concerned about probably many things, but the thing that really I can't let go of is, again, sticking you as a customer into a bad place. So yes, you want to go update dependencies on an application, but are you aware of the impact said ripple effect of updating said application? So an example that I always use, because I'm old head config man guy, your config man agent has a bunch of dependencies, prerequisites for it to fully function. Let's just say that you go update random app number 1. App number 1 has a dependency that gets installed with it, C++ Visual Redistribute, 2013. 3 weeks later, you realize hardware inventory in SCCM has not worked in 3 weeks. After you spend 3 days, 3 hours, 3 weeks of research, you figure out, I deployed this app X that had this underlying dependency, said thing broke. Whose problem is that? 100% you're calling Microsoft to figure it out. You're probably going to blame us. But the other thing is, if you use a competitive product today, you don't have insight to that. They put all of that accountability on you as a customer. Why shouldn't I? But we are Microsoft, so I believe externally customers would hold us to a better standard. I.e., because there's an exact support case I would put in. Hey, I deployed the Notepad++ through Intune using EAM, and now it updated Visual C++ Redistribute, and my SCCM doesn't work. Microsoft, that's your problem. You broke it. You need to fix it. I pulled the trigger and made the execution happen, but you let me do it without insight. So I have a challenge to figure out how much insight I give you, how much notification I give you. It's not easy. It is definitely hard. And try to line that up against all of the other priorities. Like, as even I talk about dependencies, I can tell you there's 6 other things that I've heard as a loud voice that customers want us to go work on too. So this is the thing that me and Brian debate about in our engineering team. Like, how do we prioritize all these asks? Because you could you could say that's a P0. Right now, you can't add dependencies in for EAM applications. I think that's a huge problem. But I think I'd rather have that problem rather than the million support cases and wind up on Twitter, wind up on ES or on CNN or something about some bank that or financial institution that tore up their environment because they use EAM to blow that up. And it's two buckets of hot water. I'm just choosing the lesser of the evil. I could be wrong.
I want to acknowledge Jason's question. It's definitely a feature that we know will make life easier. Danny's point, before we pull the trigger on that feature, we need to make sure that you have the right impact information, that you can know, well, if you do supersede this, you know that there's a dependency on this previous application on these 100 deployments or 1,000 deployments. Are you sure? We need to provide better insights before we offer that feature. It's not that your feature isn't valid. It's super valid. And Danny and I have had conversations about this. We want to make sure, though, that we have the right infra in place to provide you the impact of that action. And we don't have that yet. So that's where we're at.
Joe, I see you put in the comments too. WinGet, it's a good.
There's a question about WinGet that I'll read in a second.
But wait, let me explain that one. So there are some, and I've actually even had this conversation with their PM. So WinGet uses a manifest file. The challenge or not challenge with that is that manifest file wasn't necessarily created by them. It was created by another customer, right? Because it's a open source type tool. So I don't know if everybody would be okay if Danny or Susan, whoever, created a manifest file, used it across the globe, but then now accidentally blew something up. Again, who's accountable, who's not accountable? Those are some threads that we'll either have to figure out or let go of as we venture into the dependency world. But the dependency thing is legit. I heard that at MMS. It's probably not as loud as a few other things, but it's definitely, I would say, towards the top 5 of the things that I've heard about.
Sure.
Go ahead, Joe.
Yep. One thing that we haven't really talked about with EAM, and I'll get to Anbarasan's question in just a moment, is that EAM, Enterprise App Management, is a catalog of applications, but we also have Windows Store, which is a catalog of applications. It's its own catalog, and there's WinGet, which is its own catalog of applications, and of course you can deploy through an Intune Win file or through an LOB app, which are all their own little ways to deploy. And one part of Anbarasan's question that I just want to clarify first is they're correct when they say that the EAM catalog is not the same as the WinGet catalog. We're not sharing catalogs here. They're all completely different catalogs. So the question that came in from LinkedIn is, we have several Win32 apps available in the WinGet repository. EAM is not using that and has different storage repository. Does that mean that WinGet repository will not be updated with new apps in the future?
So we are not the WinGet team. That's a whole different team. They have no signals, or to us at least internal, that they're deprecating, not continuing any of that. So I would expect that catalog to be full on and continue. I mean, there's no reason not to use it. It's a good thing. I used it before. I used EAM. There's no reason not to use it, to be honest. Like, if that suits your needs and your requirements, go for it. Evaluate. I mean, typical Microsoft, right? We create many ways to do the same thing. You need to pick which one you use based on set requirements. So that's how I would go forward. What are your requirements? And then how do you go forward with said requirements? The one thing I know about the WinGet thing that people talk about quite a bit, and it depends on your institution, and again, your requirements and security posture, is it's open source. How do you feel about open source in your estate? Some people are okay with it. Some people have not adopted that yet, and some people just kind of never will. So if you work with 3-letter acronym governments or financial institutions, you'll find that quite a bit. Mom and pop shops, they probably don't care, and they can run a command line and get what they want. So it just really kind of depends on how you want to do it. And I would say figure out your operational procedure after you figure out your requirements, because that should dictate basically what you do, not just your requirements, but how do you want to operationalize that based off of your requirements. Because once you figure those two out, then now you've got a process that can be either automated, simplified, be efficient. But if you just say, here are my requirements, or here what I'm choosing, you might be missing the efficiencies, because you'll create a process you probably don't need to. All right, anybody else can jump in too.
I would just say that WinGet technology is pretty awesome. And if you may not know this, but the Microsoft Store integration that we recently shipped, where you can search the Microsoft Store, discover applications like Whiteboard and Power BI and others, and deploy those, that's actually leveraging the WinGet technology on Windows, search, discover, and actually installation. And the Intune management extension on the device is working in concert with the WinGet agent. So on the Intune team, we have a keen interest in that technology. We've just dipped our toes in it, and I think there will be in the future some really cool scenarios that we can accomplish. We're just kind of starting that process.
Cool. Thanks so much for answering that. We have a question that came up on X. What about hardware apps, like those that help with webcams and whatnot? If we go to submit a new app request, do we need to submit one for each and every webcam or for each and every piece of hardware, for that to be done for consideration? And again, that link to submit that request would be aka.ms/EAM/app request.
Couldn't they just do that through a regular Win32 app?
I think the question is they want it in the EAM.
Yeah, if I want my webcam software in EAM, do I need to submit for Logitech and submit for, name your, mine's Logitech, so that's when it comes to mind, but name your webcam of choice.
So the way that form is set up is it's set up so we can actually make it actionable and not go do more work, because manual processes, we have a lot of work already to do. So I need the name of the application and the download URL. I probably look at that list every 2 weeks, because the devs are always asking me, hey, Danny, what app should we add next, et cetera, et cetera. So the more of the same application it gets listed is kind of how I prioritize what I send over to the devs for testing, et cetera. So yes, long way to answer your question. Yes, you need to add the app for your camera or cameras. Don't do what we've seen before, because it makes it very hard for us to do something with, because we have seen customers put Joe actually called us out.
I was just about to say this. I was just about to say all SAP apps, SAP.com. No, we can't do it that way.
Yeah, in the nicest way I can say thank you, but that's not helpful for us to go and do anything with.
Right.
Because I literally look at the list every 2 weeks, sort by name, and again with some Excel magicry, right? Group them together, figure out what the highest counts are, send that over to the devs. Devs say this is good or this isn't good, meets criteria, doesn't meet criteria. So an example, just to give kind of a sizing, I think I sent the devs 600 apps last time, and only 200 made it to even go through and test. So the first thing I do, though, because what you see in the catalog is a subset of what we have. So it's nice to actually get all the requests, because I know I can go look and say, do we have this app, this metadata? For the most part, we have most of the apps that have been asked for. There are, again, reasons why those apps weren't in the catalog yet based off of X criteria. But my first concern is, do we even have the data for that app? Because if we don't, I got to go get it, then figure out if I can evaluate it.
So we have we have questions. They realize that the app team is here, so we're getting questions topics now. This one's coming in from LinkedIn. Any possibility of having a repair option in the company portal with a custom command line configuration in Intune?
I think this is for Nicole. No?
It doesn't matter. Go, Nicole. All yours.
Any possibility of having a repair option in the company portal with custom command line configurations in Intune?
Let's
not
break
sure.
that into two, though, right? So let's say any possibility of having a repair option in company portal. I want to repair an app. Let's start with that part.
I am hoping to defer to Brian.
Sure, I will take that one. There's a button, and you can do install, you can do uninstall, and in fact, as a team, we were reviewing the list of backlog requests, and this one shows up pretty high on the list. So it's a highly requested feature, and it's something that we totally recognize as a need. Once again, I'll have to be a little vague as far as timelines and commitments on that, but I will assure you it is one of the things that we know we need to go build. It's just a matter of time on the repair option. Now, custom command lines, that's interesting. So you would say you want maybe a repair command line that's different from install. That's something that maybe we should augment our directory item where we track items. I'll take a look at that. I think that's a very interesting ask.
If you're looking for a custom command line that can be pushed through Intune, I might look at on-demand remediations as an option, something that you can push right from the console. It is a script. Something like that might actually work for you.
Yeah,
and that exists today.
I mean, we hear the feedback, right? I mean, there's a lot of different scenarios, either an end user driven repair just to try to get the app back running and functioning, whether it's a help desk interaction where the help desk personnel are trying to work through with an end user. And it'd be nice to just do a real time, hey, let's get this thing reinstalled. Because as the person that asked the question must know, if the app is considered installed, which means we detect it, it's hard to force the application to install again. Intune likes to do the right thing and not install if it's there. Now, so repair is a whole new thing. We totally recognize that. We got to work on it.
Yep. Thanks, Brian, for answering that.
Yep.
So we have a question that I'm going to actually take a little bit, and then I'm going to give it to Danny. So on X, we got a question. We keep talking about the list of applications. How do I know if my app is already included in the list? And again, when you want an application to be added to our catalog, we can add it to our list by you filling out the form at aka.ms/eam/app request. How do you know if your app has already been requested? It doesn't matter. The more requests we get for an app, I don't want to say the higher in priority it goes, but we know that it's a highly requested app. So even if we were to share this list, which I don't think it would be possible for us to share, but even if we could share it, we don't want to dissuade you from also adding your +1 next to it. So still keep requesting the apps, whether or not we've had that request before. Should be irrelevant right now. Just go ahead and request the app. Danny, do you want to add on to that?
Are they asking about the list of apps to be considered, or are they asking about the existing catalog?
I think it's to be considered. That's a good question, Steve. Maybe we get a little clarification. I looked at that as, how do I know if my app is already on the list to be considered? But you're right, it might be in the catalog. So if it is in the catalog, thanks, Steve, and thanks, Heather, aka.ms/eam/app list. These are the apps that are currently in the catalog. This may not get updated every single time an app gets added to the catalog, but soon enough after the catalog the app gets added to the catalog, we'll update that page as well.
Yeah, we're working with the docs team on that. So every time before we do a list, there are a few other, before we add apps, marketing needs to know as well as docs team. So we get a big group chat or email together to let them know, hey, apps are there. That's about it.
I think we have time for one more question. Steve, do we have time for one more question?
Oh, let's sneak it in real quick. Go ahead, Joe.
This came from Tech Community. Is there any plan to increase the maximum number of superseded apps from 10 in the Win32 app model?
So the current number is still 10. We don't have any plans so far. I think there's a lot of technical reasons why that the number is at 10. But if there ever are any plans, it'll be referenced in our docs.
All right. Well, I think we're coming up upon time. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to start with Joe. We're going to do a little quick round table and get some final thoughts from our panel tonight. So Joe, it's been good having you here as guest host. What are your final thoughts?
That's my final thought. I'm so happy that you all asked me to join in this. I love partnering with this team on enterprise app management and the Win32 app model. So thank you for allowing me to be here as a host, and thank you for allowing me to kind of be a proxy as part of this team that I'm sort of like neighboring with. So thank you.
All right, Nicole.
Yeah, it's been great. This is my first time doing this, but I hope I'll be back soon and expecting a lot of emails.
All right, and Brian.
Yeah, so some of you may know this. I've been at Microsoft a long time, over 20 years. Most of that has been in enterprise management. A lot of it has been working on app management challenges, whether it's SCCM or Intune. I love the space. I love helping you do great work at your job. And so I want to continue to do that. And I really appreciate getting the opportunity to be part of this panel.
And our guest of honor, Danny Guillory.
No final thoughts. Thanks everybody for coming. Go use Intune, go use apps, and let Brian, Nicole know all of the issues, and then we shall figure out how to increase our backlog.
So my final thought is, it is my belief that Win32 apps are going to be around forever. They're going to survive the nuclear apocalypse. I think all the zombies are going to be walking around still using Win32 apps, in my opinion. No matter how hard we've tried, they are just persistent.
They won't die. They won't go anywhere.
They won't. And so I'm sure our users out there are ecstatic and happy of all the investments we're making in this space around enterprise apps and Win32 and x64 apps, and of course ARM apps, as we mentioned as well. The Windows app ecosystem has always been a challenge because there's so much variety out there, and there's so many different types of applications and so many different app platforms. And I just think you guys have done a fantastic job, and I really appreciate you guys being here, and hope to have you guys back again in the next few months, and to continue to talk about all the other innovations that are being done in this space. So with that, I'll go ahead and wrap this up. And again, this is Steve Thomas for my special co-host Joe Lurie and our guests Danny, Nicole, and Brian. Thank you for watching Unpacking Endpoint Management. Next month, we're going to talk about those other desktops and how you can use Intune to manage those other desktops. By that we mean non-Windows. By that we mean primarily Mac OS and possibly Linux. We'll see what's happening. But again, thank you all for coming, and have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.